So let's talk about the hinge. The prime mover, the agonist, is gonna be the glutes. The synergist, the helper, is gonna be the hamstrings and the erector spinae. So let's show you some regressions and progressions to the hinge. So the hinge, a couple of exercises that come to mind is the RDL, the Romanian deadlift, and the hip thrust. So we're gonna show you the Romanian deadlift. The key thing here, the one cue I like to give, is to make sure your big toe, little toe heel is on the ground at all times and really push your glutes back. The more stiff-legged you are, the hamstring is gonna be the primary. You have slight knee bend. When you push your hips back, you'll feel a stretch in your glutes. The glutes is gonna be the primary for this exercise. If your client is experiencing any type of lower back pain or discomfort, this is how we can regress and teach the hinge. So let's work on our hinge. Assisted Romanian deadlift. All right, same rules apply. You still want to tell your client, make sure they have their big toe, little toe, heel on the ground at all times. They can use the bench or whatever you use as support. One hand on the bench, one hand on their tummy. I want them to engage their core during this movement. All I want them to do is push their hips back. A cue you can give them is imagine that you're trying to close the door with your glutes. All right, if they're still having issues, bending over at the waist, it's okay. We can add a foam roller to the mix. So place the foam roller right behind them and tell them knock the foam roller over. Go closer, push back. There you go, just like that. Knock it over. Try to knock it over. Nice. There you go. And that is way we can help our client out. Now let's say your client needs a little bit more assistance with the hinge. All right, this is where you can get involved as the trainer. Placing the band around your client's waist, and I'm just going to gently pull back. So when your client goes into an RDL here, say, hey, push your hips back. The band will help push your client's hips back. They'll be able to feel that. Don't pull too hard because then you're going to pull them out of their stance, their position. Remember, big toe, little toe, heel on the ground, great cue to give. Keeps your clients focused on their feet and also just pushing their glutes back. All right, so we're upgrading. Your client's able to do a hinge properly. Now we're going to add some weight. So you can either choose a kettlebell or a dumbbell. You can do a single kettlebell, you can do a single dumbbell, you can do 2 kettlebells, you can do 2 dumbbells. Doesn't matter. This is where we're working on form. This is how we progress. So you can start with 1 of each, or you can then you can transition into 2, adding more weight. So Kiani's going to show you both. Remember, big toe, little toe, heel on the ground. The more stiff-legged you are, it's going to target the hamstrings. When you have a slight knee bend in there, we're targeting the glutes. And we can keep progressing, adding more weight, and then we can start transitioning to the barbell like we showed in the beginning. Another option while using dumbbells or kettlebells is another option for your deadlifts. If you're using dumbbells or kettlebells, you can actually change the position of where your client is going to grab them from. So kind of in more of a neutral grip on the sides. So these could be easier. You can change the elevation. You can use yoga blocks, bumper plates, plyo boxes to change the elevation of where they're grabbing it. And it can help them go more into a squat position, kind of still teaching them the hinge. And this is a great transition from using these or utilizing this style into the trap bar that we use for the trap bar deadlift, which we'll show next. This is a great way if your client still can't get into that great hinge with the dumbbells or kettlebells in the front position, which is placing it on the side, making it a little bit more easier for your client. So progression to the kettlebells and dumbbell RDLs, it's going to be our trap bar deadlift. So again, you can add more load here, and also we can make the deadlift safe for our client. And then when they're finished, make sure to help them out, because the trap bar can flip over on them and they can trip. So you can hold it steady as they come out of the trap bar. So progressing to the deadlift with the barbell. Cue here, again, big toe, little toe, heel on the ground. Make sure the barbell is close to your shins. Should be touching it. And your hands is just outside of your shins. What we're going to do is try to pull the slack out of the bar, really get our glutes engaged first. We're going to pull up. Once the barbell passes the knees, that's when we can really focus on our posterior pelvic tilt, squeezing the glutes. Was that anterior pelvic tilt? No, that's right, posterior pelvic tilt. Do that shit again. So now we progress to the deadlift with the barbell. Same rules apply. Make sure your feet, your toe. Now we progress to the deadlift with the barbell. Same rules apply with our feet. Big toe, little toe, heel on the ground at all times. Make sure the barbell is touching your shin. Your grip, your hands is right outside your shin. You want to take the slack out of the bar, really get your glutes engaged. And when you drive up, as soon as the barbell crosses your knees, posterior pelvic tilt and squeeze the glutes at the top. Try not to hyperextend your lower back. It's unnecessary. All right? As soon as you squeeze those glutes, keep everything nice and tight. And then slowly hinge on the way down, tracking your legs with the barbell. Now let's talk about the hinge for our hip thrust, the regressed. So now let's talk about the hinge for our hip thrust. So we're going to talk about the regressed floor bridge. Now let's talk about another hinge pattern exercise from the hip thrust is the floor bridge. So we're going to lay on the floor, feet stays in contact with the floor. We're going to drive our hips up, squeezing our glutes at the top. If your client states that they don't feel it in their glutes, we do two things. We can have our client lift their toes up and really drive through the heels. They still can't feel it. It's okay. Maybe we can ask our client, hey, can you poke your glutes for me? Try to see if they can stimulate that muscle-mind connection with their brain. Or you can have them hold at the top. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And they should feel it there. So now your client's been doing some floor bridges. Now it's time to progress it. We're going to add some weight. So hand the dumbbell to your client. We're going to place it right around their pelvic area where it's nice and comfortable. And then we're just going to drive up. So we can make this more challenging by either holding at the top, squeeze, 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 release, slowing the tempo. There you go. Bring it slowly, bring it back down. Or we can get involved as a trainer, red light, green light, or close your eyes. When I say green, go. When I say red, stop. All right? Green. Red. Hold, hold, hold. You're still at that red light. Green. And that's how we can get involved as a trainer. Another progression from the floor bridge is adding a barbell to it. So make sure you have some type of barbell pad for comfort for your client. And we can do the same thing here. Squeezing the glutes at the top, driving through our heels. And this is a great progression to the hip thrust. So let's go into the hip thrust, body weight hip thrust. Starting point, mid-back should be at the bench. A great point of reference for your feet. Extend your feet out and mark where your client's knee is. And then they can place their heel right where your finger is. It's a great starting point or point of reference to start for your hip thrust. And then we're just gonna drive through our heels, squeeze the glutes at the top. Now to progress the bodyweight hip thrust, just add weight with a dumbbell. From here, give the weight to your client. You're gonna place it right in your pelvic area. Same rules apply. Push through the heels and squeeze the glutes at the top. And then for some trainer engagement, if you want to make this a little more challenging, go to the side of your client's knee, have them drive that knee out. Don't let me push it in, don't let me push it in. There you go. Same side, don't let me push it in. Good job. And now, the hip thrust. Utilizing the bench, making sure your mid back is on the bench. We're gonna keep our chin tucked, push through our heels, and squeeze the glutes at the top. If your clients are experiencing or feeling this in their hamstrings, they're not feeling their glutes, you may have to change the foot position. How we do that, let's get to the bottom, have your leg out, and mark where your knee is for your client. That's ideally where their feet should go. You can make small adjustments from there. It's a great starting point to set up for the hip thrust.